Trade wars used to sound like tariffs and headlines. Today, trade wars look like something deeper. Supply chains are being rebuilt in real time, not for cost, for security, for resilience, and for leverage. For decades, globalization was optimized around one idea: efficiency. Companies built supply chains to minimize cost. Manufacturing moved to wherever labor was cheapest and capacity was largest. Components crossed borders multiple times before becoming finished products. It was fast, efficient, and profitable. But it was also fragile. Global shocks exposed that fragility. Pandemic disruptions, shipping bottlenecks, energy spikes, geopolitical tensions. Suddenly, the world learned the hidden cost of efficiency: dependence. And dependence is a vulnerability. That's why we're seeing a structural shift from globalization to reconfiguration. The new question companies ask isn't, how cheap can we make it? It's, how secure is the supply? That shift is massive because it changes where factories get built, where capital flows, and which countries benefit. The new trade war isn't always fought with tariffs. It's fought with export controls, subsidies, sanctions, and strategic industrial policy. Countries are increasingly trying to control critical inputs: semiconductors, batteries, energy infrastructure, advanced manufacturing equipment, rare earth supply. And the logic is simple. If a resource is critical to your economy and your defense systems, you don't want it controlled elsewhere. This is why friendshoring and nearshoring have accelerated. Instead of building in the cheapest location, companies build in locations considered politically reliable. Manufacturing shifts toward allied regions. Supply chains shorten. Redundancy increases. That sounds stable, but it also raises costs. Building redundancy means paying for backup capacity. Shortening supply chains can increase labor costs. Domestic production often requires subsidies to compete. So while the shift improves resilience, it can also create inflation pressure in certain sectors. Efficiency is deflationary. Resilience is often inflationary. Resilience also changes corporate balance sheets. Companies carry more inventory. They sign longer-term supply agreements. They diversify suppliers even if it's more expensive. That means more working capital tied up in operations. Over time, that can reduce corporate flexibility and raise the cost of doing business. It's not dramatic in one quarter, but it's structural. And structural shifts are exactly what markets eventually price in. This is one reason the inflation story may remain structurally different in the next decade compared to the pre-2020 era. But beyond cost, there's a bigger impact. Trade reconfiguration changes growth trajectories. Countries positioned as manufacturing alternatives can attract investment. Mexico, Vietnam, India, Eastern Europe in some categories. At the same time, countries that relied heavily on being the single dominant manufacturing hub face pressure to maintain their position. This creates a reshuffling of industrial influence. And that reshuffling is slow but powerful. It doesn't show up in one quarter. It compounds over years. There's also a corporate strategy layer. Supply chain design is now part of competitive advantage. Companies that can secure inputs during disruptions outperform. Companies that can ship reliably win contracts. Companies that can avoid sanctions exposure reduce risk. So supply chain teams are becoming strategic teams. Risk management becomes operational, and operational resilience becomes a differentiator. Now add the geopolitical layer. When countries use export controls and sanctions, they aren't just restricting trade, they're shaping technology access. They're shaping industrial capacity. They're shaping who can grow fast and who can't. This is why the new trade war will likely continue. Because it's not simply a disagreement, it's a competition over industrial leverage. And industrial leverage determines long-term economic power. So what should you watch? 1. Major subsidy programs and industrial policy announcements. 2. Export control expansions. 3. Shifts in manufacturing investment patterns. 4. Persistent logistics rerouting. Those are the signals that supply chains are being redesigned. Not temporarily, structurally. The world isn't deglobalizing completely, it's reorganizing. And reorganization creates winners and losers. Countries that capture new manufacturing capacity gain jobs, exports, and investment. Countries that lose it face adjustment. Companies that adapt early gain resilience. Companies that don't get exposed. This is what the new trade war really is. Not tariffs, not speeches, a global rewiring of production and dependence. And once supply chains are rebuilt, they tend to stay built.